Hello, and thanks for joining me for episode 2 of A Song in 7 Days. I'm writing a new song every month in 2018, but there's one simple catch. From the moment I have the idea for the song, I have exactly 7 days to finish it. This is the story of how I wrote the song on paper. Okay, so I've had an idea for a song, for February's song for the project. I've come down to Oxford to pick up my sister Lizzie and her boyfriend Tim. So I'm lucky enough to be in Oxford for a couple of hours, and I feel pretty inspired to write something new. With it being Valentine's Day this month, I figured I'd actually write a love song of some description, but it's probably going to be a little bit different. So the idea is that I look back rather than looking forward for this sort of project, and look back to things in the 80s and how they made music then, and use that as a framework for the song. It's really not a huge surprise to me that I was inspired by visiting Oxford. I lived here for 3 years and I have a lot of fond memories of the place. Every time I come back I see it in a different light. And in this case, I was lucky enough to get an idea for a song. So I'm home from Oxford now. I've had a long drive back, just thinking through some of the ideas for the song. I intend to use the same techniques to write this song, but actually use 80s technology to put the song together. So I'm going to dig out my old Yamaha DX7 synthesizer that was given to me by my old piano teacher, which is a fantastic bit of kit. It's very dated. So I would describe the song as a ballad, but I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think it's just going to be a slow song of some description. I intend to make it quite an epic piece of music and produce it in an epic way. I've had a few lyric ideas already, including thinking of love as a game. You know, play your cards right, or that's how they get you. You know, like a game is rigged in a certain way. Lots of metaphors about gaming of some description. That's the direction I plan to take with this. I envisage a romantic song rather than a love song. That's a good way of describing it. I like that. I've actually already come up with a title for this, which is different to last time. The phrase, your type on paper. Just the idea that somebody can be perfect in the way that they present themselves, but it's not always the case. I've sketched a few ideas down already, and I'll probably flesh that out tomorrow because I'm quite tired now. I've been thinking about chord structures for the song, and I want to make it quite simple so that I don't detract away from the lyrics. More than ever, I think that in these romantic songs that lyrics are more important. I've been thinking about the lyrics a lot more than I normally would, and I'm trying not to overthink it. I've been taking a lot of time to reflect on the ideas that I've had and the little metaphors that I'd like to use in the song. I really like the idea of saying that love is like a game that we play and we roll the dice and we don't know what happens. A source of inspiration for me in particular is a poem by Sylvia Plath called The Fig Tree. I think it's called The Fig Tree. I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. One fig was a husband and a happy home and children, and another fig was a famous poet, and another fig was a brilliant professor, and another fig was Europe and Africa and South America, and another fig was Constantine and Socrates and Attila, and a pack of other lovers with queer names and offbeat professions. Sylvia really hits the nail on the head with this one. Life to me is genuinely like this. We kind of wander through, brushing shoulders with all these possible futures, and my imagination often gets preoccupied with the slightly more chaotic aspect of life. What would it be like to be with this person? If I'd said this, would this have happened, etc.? Yet, as we ponder each eventuality, it slowly slips away, depressing as that may be. I think this has inspired me particularly because when it comes to love, it's very easy to get sucked into the idea of what could be rather than what's actually happening in the present moment. And that's what I want this song to be about. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to write a letter. This is another songwriting technique that I use when I've got an idea, where I write a letter to a fictional person or I write it to myself about all the content of the song that I want to include. That way I can look over the letter tomorrow and make sure I don't miss anything when I'm writing the lyrics. But also it means I can get all the ideas out of my head and onto the page. So I've made myself a cup of tea and I'm just going to sit and write it. I've just been reading through the letter that I wrote myself yesterday, And I think before I develop the lyrics any further, it's a good idea for me to build a soundscape on Logic Pro. So I'll choose all of the synth sounds, bass sounds, drum sounds that I want to use, in the hope that it will inspire me to create the right sort of lyric for the song. I really do think the funniest thing about this is using the DX7. It's such an old bit of gear, but there's a lot of stuff on here that's very, very strange. There's a lot of synth sounds that are quite familiar, including the bass sounds and the synth strings, but other than that, there's a lot of things like there's one called Take Off, I'll show you. Prepare for the most 80s thing in the world. And it goes up at the end. So it's now time to write some lyrics. I've got the fire on, I'm sat in the lounge, Dumpling's over there just chilling. So yeah, a good environment for writing, I think. Let's see what I can come out with. Looking back over the lyrics that I wrote last night, it's clear that creating that soundscape was a good source of inspiration for the writing. It's very rare that I get close to finishing lyrics in one day, but that is the case with this. I was clearly in the zone last night, sat by the fire with the dog, so I just cracked on. It's a bit strange writing the lyrics first, this is quite unusual for me, but I guess that means that now I can look at the musical elements and shape them around the lyrics. So this will be a bit of a learning curve for me. I'm going to make a cup of tea in that case and crack on with some of the music today. I may have gone too far in a few places actually. Listening back to the sound palette that I created yesterday, it is extremely 80s. Like even Phil Collins at this point would be telling me that I'd overcooked the roast. So from a creative standpoint, I've decided to limit myself to only 4 80s things. Number 1, electric drums. Number 2, the DX7 bass. Number 3, the DX7 string sound, because even though it is a little bit naff, it's quite charming. And number 4, this is an optional one, a key change of some description. Don't know whether I'll actually use it, but it's good to have it in the arsenal in case I need to give it that extra punch towards the end of the song. So in the next little while, I'm going to try my best to bring this song back into the current century. What feels like 1,000 cups of tea later, inevitably, we have something down, something usable. If anything, I feel like I'm going to have to make it a little bit rougher around the edges, because at the moment it does sound very pristine. I'll be honest, I'm absolutely shattered, you can probably see it from the bags under my eyes, but I've been working at this for quite a few hours now, and I'm really pleased that I have done this. Other creative people out there will know exactly how this feels. When you're really onto something, you do just push through. And I genuinely can't believe I've done this much early on in the week. Although now I've said that, chances are something's going to come up, some kind of obstacle, no doubt. Fingers crossed it doesn't, but knowing my luck, it probably will. But yes, another successful day of songwriting, I think.
So on day 5, I actually had to drive to Oxford and back to take my sister and her boyfriend home. This turned out to be a blessing for a number of reasons. First of all, the journey was quite fun. I was in good company and there was a fair amount of banter. We always try to choose the most scenic route there, so there's a good mixture of motorway and beautiful countryside. From years of driving up and down the country, I also know where all the best service stations are, so getting a decent coffee is easy. I used the day to look back on what I'd already written, reflecting on changes I might make. Over the years, I've formed a connection with Oxford, which just seems to have constantly evolved, even since I left university. Whether I'm there for a couple of hours or a couple of days, I always seem to have a great time. I was particularly pleased this time because I was able to get a flat white from my favourite coffee shop and have a wander around for an hour. My sister is now studying here. She's even living in the same halls that I did, which is strange. Every time I visit, I walk past the flat that I lived in, and the memories come flooding back. Getting there and back in a day was tricky, but there's always time for a cuppa. I enjoyed the most sentimental cup of the week there, sat in an oddly familiar kitchen. But soon it was time to hit the road again, and I arrived home later that night.
So when I got back last night, I couldn't resist doing a little bit more work on the song. It's not surprising to me really, because driving has that effect on me. It makes me feel very inspired. When I'm in the car for a couple of hours, I often run up to the studio and start working straight away, because it's like you're having the ideas in your head, but then you can't actually physically do anything about it because you're behind the wheel of a car. I'm genuinely surprised to be this far on at this point. I feel like I've just been in a really good frame of mind with it, and I'm quite inspired by what I'm actually writing, which is great. The cogs are whirring and the tea is flowing, so I'll just carry on as I am. I think it's going to be a good song, actually. Also, it's very, very cold here today. Even the heating in the house doesn't seem to be doing the trick. So, jumpers on again. I don't know whether it's nostalgia that's got the better of me in this situation, but I decided this morning to go to where all my things from university are currently stored and retrieve my favourite mug. It's the first time that I've had a cup of tea in this in about... Let me work it out. I want to say 3 years, is that right? 4 years. That's terrifying. 4 years since I've had a cup of tea out of this mug. And it got me through a lot of hard times, actually. Now that I've got a nice cup of tea, I've decided to consolidate the lyrics a little bit. It has definitely developed into a song about falling in love too easily, which I'm fine with, you know. I think I've actually managed to stick to my initial brief and idea as best as I can. But, you know, songs evolve over the course of writing them, even over a 7-day period. I think the general vibe of the song is good. Also, it's still really, really cold in this house. Before I record the backing vocals, I've decided to arrange them properly using Sibelius. I know it's a bit of a classical way to do things, but I prefer doing it this way because I've already written the chords, and this way I can sort of visualise and see the movement between the vocal parts a lot easier. Not only that, but in terms of the suspensions and the things that make those vocal harmonies a little bit more interesting, seeing them on a screen and hearing them played back to you does actually give you a good idea as to whether it's going to work or not. I really do believe in putting a lot of time into what is essentially choral arrangement, because I know what my vocal range is and I know the limitations of it. And also, the beauty is I can just overtrack it all and make sure that it's in time and in tune and things like that. As you can probably see, I'm here on a sofa, and I just figured I wanted to make this a little bit more enjoyable. I've got my cup of tea over there, Back to the Future mug. It's been a good day for that. I've got 2 acoustic panels behind me that are actually ones that I built myself, so in a sense they're a little bit like prototypes, because I don't really know what to do with them yet in terms of how I'm going to get them off the ground. But I've actually managed to staple them together, which in itself is quite remarkable. So yeah, I've got my laptop here, which hopefully I'm going to use to control that main computer, and I've got my Sibelius arrangement ready to record the backing vocals. It's a lovely sunny day in Doncaster. It's a shame to be cooped up inside, actually. Very beautiful blue sky. Still a bit cold, but, you know, we can't really complain, to be honest. Just getting ready to record the vocals on the song. I'm still using my sat-down setup because it's quite comfortable. Why not? I'm only going to change one thing from yesterday, and that's moving the microphone round because I was singing into the wrong side of it. But isn't that amazing that this microphone is so good that I actually didn't notice? So now that's the right way around. I'm going to record the vocals, and then it'll be moving on to the mixing stage of the song again. And obviously I'm reluctant to wake Dumpling up from his sunbathing, but, you know, needs must. I need his input on this one in particular. Might seem a bit mad, but I'm actually listening to the mix from outside the room. Tends to give you an idea as to whether you've mixed it properly, I find. Very bass heavy, this one. I also tend to do quite a bit of listening in conventional places like this, listening through hi-fi systems and things like that, because this is how most people are going to consume this music. That and listening through their iPhones and things like that. It does sound a bit bass heavy, so I'm going to go and change that upstairs now, and hopefully that'll make things a little bit more natural sounding. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I am finished. I have finished another song in 7 days. It has been an incredible experience. Once again, I feel really inspired. I can't wait to do another one. I can't believe I've got to wait until March to actually do that. And once again, I can't thank you enough for joining me on this journey. I feel like this has gotten a lot quicker than the last one, and I think I've been into it a lot more. I think I'm really starting to find a groove with this. Not only am I starting to become less of a perfectionist, but I'm feeling like I'm actually doing something creative all the time. It's great. I really hope that you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed creating the song. Again, if you have any thoughts on my process or any questions about how I do things, then please leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Again, thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the song as much as I do. I've got a very good feeling about this one, actually.